You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel.
And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Indiana Hoosiers defeat the Iowa Hawkeyes 74-68 in just an incredible up-and-down basketball game that saw a gutty performance by a lot of Indiana Hoosiers all the way through to the end to pull out the victory. Real quick, Indiana jumps off to a nice lead. They get some good bench play. I'm sure we'll talk about that. They have a 17-point lead at one point, take an 11-point lead into the second half. And then they lost a little bit of their defensive intensity, matched with Iowa's excellent guard play, and got the game back to a close game. Iowa takes the lead. It goes back and forth a lot of the second half. And then at the end, you had an outstanding performance by Khalil Ware on the offensive glass, getting some key baskets and ones to keep Indiana close enough. And then they had enough stops at the end and hit some free throws to put it away, some big shots all the way through the game. Very successful night. Unfortunately, there's a couple injuries that we won't know about until we get some word from the Indiana Athletic Department. Malik Renew went out at 17:05 mark, and Xavier Johnson took a really, really hard fall late in the game, and he was out the last 2:12, I believe, in the game. And so that's the negative hanging over. But we're going to talk about this excellent win all night tonight, so stick with us. I'm your host, Coach Brian Tonsone. I'm here with Coach Bob Moats and Ryan Phillips, and we're going to break it down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. But let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And there's so many ways that I can go with this, but I first want to say Project 44. Both teams were wearing the T-shirts for Andrew Smith. I'm so excited about the win. I think I got that name right. He lost his life, and there's a bone marrow transplant organization and in college basketball. Kudos to Indiana Athletics, Iowa Hawkeyes for supporting that. That's, to me, the banner moment. That disease needs all the attention it can get. And then as far as basketball goes, Anthony Leal is my banner moment. As someone reminded me on Twitter that I didn't think he'd get many minutes a few weeks ago over C.J. Gunn, and the young man has stayed with it in practice. He's always been a good leader, and now he's putting a performance together in practice, and it came over into the game. Career high today of, 13 points did he end up with? 13 points, 7 rebounds, and some outstanding passing outside of any assist that he got tonight. And he just was the spark. Indiana, when he was on the bench, went on a 12, or when he came off the bench, was on a 12-0 run in that first half and hit 2 big threes when they were doubling the post, and was ready with his feet, a good shot preparation, and knocked down the threes. Indiana hit 5 threes early, and it set the tone offensively for a good half of basketball. So just outstanding play. But our banner moment today is sponsored by Home Field Apparel. Home Field's now in their 7th season sponsoring Assembly Call, and their 3rd as a presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere, and since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner. And they're coming out with some new gear. I've been fortunate to see a sneak peek. I've been told that I can't share what's coming out for IU, but it is absolutely fantastic. Look for a social media hit next week and go buy some more gear. But it's not just IU. Home Field's product line extends to well over 150 colleges, universities, plus the Colts core collection and much, much more. Nice Indiana crew neck here. No matter what you buy, it'll be comfortable and the colors will last. Plus, you're supporting an Indiana-based company that came up through Kelly and isn't shy about showing its love for the Hoosiers. So go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com, Wear one for the team. All right, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. We're going right to you, Ryan Phillips. Indiana breaks a 3-game losing streak with a real gutsy performance. What's your rant tonight, buddy?
I think that this game, the show changed about 4 times throughout the last half of basketball. It went from, wow, what a great performance. They really stepped up when they needed to, oh, God, everybody's injured and they're going to lose, to they blew a 17-point lead to, again, you could quibble with a lot, but just the one word that comes out is just toughness, man. Those kids played their tails off all game, shorthanded, fighting against, certain decision-making and certain things that happen. I mean, guys didn't play perfect. This was an ugly basketball game, but the tougher team won, and there's nobody that personifies that toughness like Anthony Leal. I mean, that kid's career, to just be sitting there for 3 years and to be able to come off the bench against Iowa in a Big Ten game and have the best game of your career, hitting 3 of 4 threes, grabbing 7 rebounds. I mean, Anthony Leal grabbed 7 rebounds, guys, and it was all he had a block. It's all just toughness, man. Toughness, savvy, smarts, stepping in and stepping up. He guarded Perkins to a standstill at points. I mean, Anthony Leal, crown the kid right now. He deserves it. Other guys may have had more stats one way or the other, but that was Anthony Leal's game, man. That is the Anthony Leal game. And there is no reason he should play fewer than 22 minutes in the next game, especially we don't know what the injuries are going to be, but he earned it tonight. And this is a kid who could have transferred out, could have gone elsewhere. He's a Bloomington kid who wanted to play for Indiana, and to see him on the court, I don't care what happens the rest of the season. This was a great Indiana moment. This kid got to shine tonight and basically lead Indiana to a victory on a night where if you went in saying Anthony Leal's going to score 13 and grab 7 boards and be plus 13 and lead Indiana to a win, you would have been committed. So good for Anthony. I mean, he's been playing well when he's in there. He's only played in 9 games this year. So I don't know the last time I felt happier for an Indiana player than I do for Anthony Leal tonight. Just being able to step in and step up in the big moments. He had 2 big free throws late. What a game for him. And I'm proud of him as a fan. We've met Anthony before. He's a great kid. I could not be prouder of Anthony Leal tonight for representing my university and the basketball program I love.
Well said. And I even like some non-stat things that we'll talk about down the road. Some of the defensive things he did wasn't perfect, but his hockey passes and his passes that set up plays, if you watch the game closely, maybe that's a meaningful moment, a little shout out to the meaningful moment. Anthony Leal. And now we pass it over to Coach Bob Moats. Nice pullover there, Coach. How are you feeling tonight with this 74-68 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes?
Winning always feels better than losing. I don't care if you win ugly and you lose pretty, it's still better when you're ugly. And all I know is a month ago, maybe against an opponent like Iowa, could IU have won this game with the way it swung? And I think one area of growth that we've seen, and I talk a lot about, can you take a punch, get knocked to the canvas, get back up and keep fighting? This was a game where IU, they had it under control. They played Iowa about as well as you could play Iowa defensively. And then that 20-minute mark, from the beginning of the second half to about the 12-minute mark, they just kind of went into tunnel vision. And you thought, okay, here we go again. But they got knocked down, popped back up, kept fighting through it. And even when, you thought after the Sanford shot where that cross-court pass from McCafferty.
What a play.
Beautifully drawn, beautifully executed. Nothing, other than landmines, you're not going to stop that thing. Shot goes in, and you just think, okay, it's, they found their new Jordan Bohannon, and, they found the new guy, and you're going, no.
We don't honestly say that name on this show, Bob. I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. Captain Firework is fine with me, too, but I'm going to tell you that just the fact that IU just went down, Cup hits a huge 3 to counter it, and then pretty much that was it for Iowa. So, you go 15 rounds in a heavyweight fight in the Big Ten. I don't care if you're home or you're on the road. You come out with a big win. a game Indiana wasn't expected to win, a game that IU was underdogs in. So there we go. It was that's what we needed that's what we need to see from this team, and we need to see coming through the month of February.
There's so many stories. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the story of tonight, while Anthony Leal's the big one, he's part of a larger story of guys stepping up. And I think that you look at X went down. Obviously, I thought he was playing a decent game. He had a couple bad turnovers, but in general, I thought he was playing a decent game. Goes down, he's out. You had Renew go out early. He's out. Really, what do you replace him with? You've got Anthony Walker playing some. You've got them going small some finally. Khalil Ware, while he finished with 23, I don't think anybody would say that Khalil was at 100% tonight. I mean, he was side to side. Defensively was struggling. He had a couple of nice blocks and really affected some shots. But in general, he was kind of slow, kind of hard, and then you could see him. Then you could see why. Is it later? He was struggling with the injury. Made a couple great plays late after a timeout. Got to rest it a little bit and made a couple great. But in general, you had to have other guys step up because the guys you rely on were just out. And so I thought Trey Galloway, while you can quibble here and there, he had 9.7 rebounds, 4 assists. You know, he goes out and has a good game. You get the big 3 by Gabe Cupps after X goes down. I mean, that was enormous to hit that 3, and we've been asking Gabe to shoot more often than not. He's got to keep doing it now. You had Leal step up. I thought Anthony Walker's energy the whole time was really good, even though, you know, it's with Anthony Walker. There's ups and downs, you know. But I just thought it was a game where Mbako, you know, tried to take more of an offensive role. He missed a lot of shots, but he was trying to do something, and a couple of those shots got rebounded for baskets. You just had the other guys all stand up and say, we're not going to lose this game. And they absolutely could have wilted when Renew went down. They could have wilted when Ware was seriously showing some injuries or showing his injury. And then they could have wilted when X went down, and they chose not to. And that was a choice. You know, you make a choice to play hard. You make a choice to fight, and you make a choice to beat the other team and beat them to the spots and be better than them. And that's what they chose tonight. And they all chose it. It wasn't one guy carrying them. They all chose to be better, and they all chose to step up. And guess what? It's not going to get any easier because there's no way that they're not going to be shorthanded moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting storyline. I was just going to say there's a lot of storylines. That is one of them. I think, but I'm going to sum it up in this way and get your guys' thoughts. Is since the week off, Indiana has played a lot better defensively. I think they've been a lot connected. That period of 10 minutes to start the second half, you could say they lacked a little bit of intensity defensively, but how much of that was just Iowa making some adjustments and those guards hitting shots, right?
And
but
yeah.
But I just wanted your comments on.
Say, coming out of the half, they probably learned whatever Renew's injury was, and that's going to deflate the room. I mean, that's
true. But I'm going to.
But they spent good time. They spent good time, and that's the Illinois defense was outstanding because that made Illinois just stand. I wasn't on the post game show and haven't had a chance to share my thoughts, but they just took Illinois out of everything and should have won that ball game defensively. And I thought tonight, even 68 points for this team, as highly efficient as Iowa offense is, to hold them to 68, even giving up that lead. I'm pretty impressed with how they've come back. The fight that you're talking about, Ryan, and defense. Bob, go ahead.
What really happens is Fran figured out, and that team figured out how to get the tempo back to where they wanted it, and that was what knocked IU down. I mean, and that's between the varying of defenses, how he kind of plays with defensive pressure. It's designed to throw an opponent off. Yeah, his defensive analytics are lousy, but the whole point of his defensive scheme is to get you to be uncomfortable on offense, take quick shots, make mistakes, and I may give something up. But when they started just going after IU in transition, because IU stopped making makes, because they were having to speed up, slow down, speed back up again, and all of a sudden there's Iowa back in it, and again they have guards that can hit shots. Perkins, Sanford, those guys pretty much put them on their backs and carried them, and that's huge if you're Indiana to be able to again deal with that change in game tempo. The way that Iowa does that, because they're gonna slow you down, they're gonna speed you up, they're gonna just keep you on your heels all game long, and IU played through that and ended up winning, and so that was a huge point for IU.
Yeah, I think the transition defense. If you want to talk about something that struggled tonight, I thought the transition defense was poor, and especially Mbako, and I saw it. He had Sanford, and he didn't lock into him early, didn't find shooters early in transition, and they hit a couple threes. And that's when I think Coach put Leo in, and then Leo was able to do a better job in transition defense. But we win a game. It's been 4 games since we win, so we're not going to focus a whole lot on what didn't work tonight. But transition defense was a struggle. Ryan, but your thought, in 2 games since that break, it does seem that is one thing. The fight is a heck of a lot better and more consistent. We had a road game where they competed and now a home game where they normally do compete. And then offensive rebounds, when we get to the stats, Indiana outscored Iowa on the offensive glass, especially Khalil Ware getting back in with his effort. So it just looks like that week off has helped Indiana, especially defensively, more than anything. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect the offensive glass thing to continue, but it was nice that it was. I'd take it if it was closer
tonight, at least.
Yeah,
tonight.
for sure. But going into that long break, they had played, I thought, pretty much terribly against Purdue, and they'd played awful at Wisconsin. Something needed to change. We said something needed to change. They needed to get lit up. And for that week, you're right. The intensity is much better defensively. I do think at the start of the second half, what happened was as soon as they got out of sorts defensively and as soon as Iowa got going, you saw Indiana's offense become completely disconnected. And I think that the key for Indiana is both have to be working. You can't have one without the other, because I think that the offensive system, as we've talked about and have our quibbles with it, they're basically walking a high wire. And if they get thrown off at all, it doesn't work. And so, especially with Ware not at 100% and, you're Renew out of there and all those things, I think it just got disjointed because they were chasing so much on defense. As soon as the defense started to lock in a little bit later, they kind of worked a different calculus with the lineups, going a little bit smaller and trying to stay more connected to their to the man-to-man aspect. I thought Leo facilitated a whole lot of communication defensively. That got guys organized again. As soon as you saw that, the offense started to find its footing again, and they started finding open looks. And here's the other thing, guys. You hit threes. I mean, it makes the game a whole lot easier when you hit threes. But I think that the intensity defensively, once that locked back in, you started to see the offense flow a little bit better.
They were very confident offensively, and they have been to start games, and then all of a sudden it seems to wane a little bit throughout the game. And whether that's fatigue or the game pressure comes on, but I thought early in the game they were taking good shots, and sometimes you got to take questionable shots from three. And I thought Indiana did that. And then I thought in the second half, Mbako and even X had some shots on kickouts that I thought they should have shot the three. Instead, they drove. And so that's still an area where I want those guys to play free, because when they do, they were 5 of 8 early and really set the tone and makes Iowa guard Indiana differently when you do that, which opens up a lot of stuff as well. In the second half, they got stagnant again. The ball started sticking, but again, they overcame it, and and to win the game is probably the most important piece, more than anything about the offense.
Yeah, and I'd say also you mentioned there were a couple times where they drove when they should have shot. There were also a couple times where they drove and kicked and probably should have finished at the rim, because Iowa didn't have a deterrent at the rim, really. And it's almost like they were expecting somebody to come and there'd be an open shot, but the mentality was, kick it out. So I do think there was just this disjointed thing on some of the plays. But at the same time, they got sort of locked back in, and that's what carried them to the end.
You think about the fact that that IU was at 1.258 points per possession at half. That's where Indiana was offensively, and they had a monster run. Not at the beginning necessarily, but they locked in for about the 15-minute mark to the 5-minute mark, where they just extended the lead to double digits and held Iowa to under a point per possession for the half. I mean, that's for Indiana, what you were seeing, and good things happen when you drive the ball. And I think that's part of the point of what we're saying. IU is driving the ball more, and where IU gets problems, the tunnel vision, when they start just locking into those post sets. When Peyton Sparks is in the game and they're sitting there in the slot and they're just standing there for 5 seconds going, come on, dude, get your position. Hey, it's been roasted. If you can't get it to him within a 1 count, reverse the ball, get going, run a cut, do something, and let's get it into empty side or something and just ram it down their throats. But there just seems to be this sort of tunnel vision at times where it's like, we're in the set, we got to run the set. You're not playing a concerto. Go out and just do this and make it happen.
Playing off of that, I got a couple other storylines, and then we'll move to the to our second segment. But Indiana played small, and at one point they played extremely small. They played a lot of 3-guard lineups.
4 guards.
They played 4 guards, and yet I do think that is tied into the ability to drive the basketball. I thought you saw that at Illinois because there's more spacing at Illinois, and they were able to drive. And you know, the color commentator mentioned I love playing off 2 feet, and I think sometimes Galloway and X get in the lane and try to do stuff that is too fancy instead of playing off of 2 feet. But I still like them driving. I thought they did a good job of penetrating the defense. On the other side, I thought Indiana did a good job of limiting the drive for the most part. They had to play bully ball or that booty ball stuff at times, but the direct drives from Iowa and Illinois the last 2 games, they've really on ball defensively have played well. But your guys' thoughts on the small lineup, and I know Renew was hurt. And Walker provides a different thing, but I do think the offense kind of looks better. I don't want Renew to be out. I'm not wishing anything like that, but smaller lineups, it seemed like the offense was better tonight, even though they have even more room to improve. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we've been asking for that, and maybe not as your default set if you've got Renew and Ware, but like at least at some point rotate through some smaller guys. Have Mbako playing the nominative 4, but play him on the perimeter, give more room. And you could see, just rewatch the game, guys. Look how much room there was in the middle of the floor. And that's easier on your post player, 100%. Secondly, you mentioned the commentators. I'd really appreciate if Brian Butch stopped talking about banked shots going in, because I still have PTSD about that. So shut up, Brian. That is true. But spread the floor. I mean, you saw the obvious gaps, and it wasn't just to throw it in the post, but to drive it. The gaps the gaps for help on the defense are wider. That means there's more room to go. You've got to have the post guy step up, and guess what? That leaves your post guy open. If they don't rotate down, it also leaves 3-point shooters open, and they were making them tonight. I just think that in general, you've got to spread it out, and that's what virtually everybody in college basketball and the NBA does now: is spread the floor, ISO the post, and find your open guys. And so seeing that, I think that really, I hope that lights something in Mike Woodson's brain, that even if you get everybody back healthy, you need to do that more, even if you just fit the lineup.
Bob, coming back to you on the same thing. Yeah. It helped that you're playing Iowa, where I think you could get away with playing small defensively and rebounding wise for the most part. But you again, thoughts on what we saw tonight? A 4-guard lineup at one point and a lot of 3-guard lineups. Injuries, yes, but I thought the offense was more enjoyable to watch for the most part tonight.
It's nice to actually see that we don't have to sub this guy in for this guy specifically. That we're now at a point where I feel like they've picked up enough where they know now what everybody else is supposed to be doing on the floor, that you can put Mbako at what you call the 4, or you can run the 3-guard lineup. Anthony Leal, I was always kind of on the movement where, Leal may just be a guy that can play 2 through 4 easily because he can defend a lot of different positions because of his strength and his smarts and his savvy. And you saw it tonight again. A couple times he got switched on. Freeman did a great job just kind of keeping him away from the ball. Doing those little things, I think, Coach, you're going to bring up here in a little bit. Those things that you don't see on a stat sheet, but still there. But you go back to 4 guards with Galloway and Leal both. You have 2 guys that pretty much they can play those. They can play more of that wing position and guard. They can switch 1 through 4 very easily and defend smartly and hold their own against probably most Big Ten 5s. One point, when you're driving the ball and you have that space and you beat your man, the opponent has to react. And we're talking about that with kickouts. We're talking about that with post players. If you're talking post offense 101, like your post needs to be on the weak side dunker spot. That's where they need to be. You don't need to have your guy occupying the block. And if I see the 3-2 alignment, again, I'm going to throw up because I can't stand the 3-2 alignment. It drives me up the wall. I know why he runs it, but at the same time, it's like you have guys, even your bigs are drivers. And so you can go more 5 out and just get them moving and do a lot. Because when you drive it to that, again, you saw that middle drive and Galloway's taking it into the lane, throws up the shot. Well, that rim protection's coming over. Everyone's going over to react to the ball, and that opens up the weak side. And 80% of your misses go weak side. So now you have board coverage on the other side because you drove the ball. And you had a lineup that can drive the ball, and you're not just trying to slam the thing into 4 defenders trying to stop Khalil Ware from getting it.
And talk about post play. The last storyline here before we move on is I'd like to talk about Khalil Ware. I think he might get an award of some sort down the line, but it's difficult to be injured and then come back, and then you have to play major minutes because your other post player is hurt. We saw him limp around a couple times. What a gutsy effort by that young man, and really put Indiana on his back with his play down the stretch, like 3 or 4 possessions in a row, getting key baskets. I know he missed a couple free throws at that one stretch, but he was just gassed, and he was still feeling the effects of whatever the lower body injury was. But I thought he did a nice job passing out of the post because they were going early, and they were sending Perkins early off of X. And I thought that led to good ball movement at times when Indiana made that extra pop pass to open either shooters or someone who could then drive a closeout. Ryan, just talk a little bit about how Khalil Ware played as effectively as he did coming off a pretty good injury.
I mean, the most effective thing he did, well, he deterred shots and he did have 3 blocks, but the most effective thing he did was offensive rebounds. He had 5 of them, and I don't know how many he scored off of, but he at least created opportunities off of, I think, all of them. And you know, you saw him really struggle at times. I thought he was gassed after 7 minutes, and that's to be expected because he hasn't been playing. He's probably been staying off the ankle, and now you've got to take this huge load. He played 35 minutes. I thought there was no way he was playing that much coming in, and I don't think he would have if Malik was around in the game. But just toughness is all I can think of him. I think any questions about that kid's heart and energy and everything, I think he was slower tonight, and I think he struggled to get up and down the floor. And I think that, you know, his expression wasn't great at times, but I think that was more having to do with the pain he was in than not wanting to be on the floor. And when they needed him the most at the end, he stepped up and he was there. And that was huge. Absolutely huge. As usual, he's efficient from the floor, 8 of 10. You know, he's rarely struggles when he actually does get the shots up. But, you know, clearly grimacing at one point repeatedly for a couple of possessions, but he stuck with it, man. That again, it just goes back to toughness. It goes back to desire. He fought through. At one point, I tweeted, I'm like, Mike, get him out of the game. He needs a break. Like, because he was limping around. I mean, you don't want him to hurt himself worse. And luckily they got a timeout. He came back in, didn't really show it after that as much. He was still kind of going up and down the floor. You could see it wasn't as smooth as it should be. But credit to that kid. I mean, that was just, he battled. He absolutely battled and just kept at it. And that was, you're right. The passing out of the post was good. He made 1 or 2 mistakes with it, but in general, it helped get the ball movement. I think Iowa was helping off with the wrong guys, frankly, and that opened things up for Indiana. So, but what can you say about him? I mean, the guy, he absolutely just toughed it out.
One quick point on this. Owen Freeman, who somebody said just give him Big Ten Freshman of the Year award early in the game, which I'm going to fight that tooth and nail. 24 minutes of action. Owen Freeman, 4 points, 2 for 3 from the field. I think it was 3. It was 2 rebounds total. Owned Owen Freeman, and coming off an injury, that's what you need from the kid.
Yeah, really, really good effort coming off an injury, and a big important part of tonight's victory. We'd like to remind everyone to go to assemblycall.com and subscribe to our free email newsletter. Also, this weekend is our annual meetup in Bloomington. A lot of us will be heading into town either Thursday night or Friday night, but we'll be out on the town Friday evening. We have a team dinner that we're going to have and talk, and then we will be out at all of the places. And then Saturday, starting at noon, tip-off, a lot of us will be in the hall watching the game, but Galen and Scott from Crimson Cast will be hosting a game watch party at the upstairs pub. And then shortly after the game, about an hour or so, given time for all of us to get back to the upstairs pub, we're going to have a variety of things in a live post-game show, and all of us will be there. And so we'd like to to meet you guys. It is 21 and over, just so everyone knows, at the Upstairs Pub. If you haven't been there, the renovations look incredible. We're excited to meet as many of you as can make it to Bloomington, and then after the post-game show and everything, we generally go back out on the town, and you're more than welcome to hang out with us and buy Coach Moats a beer or whatever his drink of choice for the X's and Joe's podcast that he does so well. So, plan on joining us this weekend if you're around town. We'll be right back to talk about some meaningful moments.
This is Verdell Jones. What's better than an epic buzzer beater, the full court dribble, and perfectly placed pass to set it all up? And of course, celebrating with Hoosier Nation afterwards. So join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the assembly call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU post-game show. I'm the host, Coach Brian Tonsoni, here with Coach Moats and shot Dr. Ryan Phillips.
I even got some
Verdell's
extra
on
music
loop.
out of that. Awesome.
Verdell's on loop. I got to go back and check that. But we're here. We're very happy. We've finally won a game after 3 losses, defeating Iowa 74-68. It's now time for meaningful moments that you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience Indiana University athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and friends. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. A lot of great moments tonight, and I'm sure all Indiana fans desiring a win remember all of the great moments. But I'm going to start with one, and if you guys have some, just throw them out here. But the extra passes that were made by Indiana, and I want to focus on Anthony Leal. When he first got in the game, before he even hit a 3, and he made a nice bounce pass to the short corner to Anthony Walker, and then Anthony Walker either scored or threw it to someone. But I wrote it down as a hockey assist, and I thought it was a really important thing that I've thought that Leo, when he has played over the years, he's been one of our most effective post passers and post-entry passers. And that play wasn't an assist because it led to someone else. Also, Xavier Johnson hits a 3 in that first half, and Leo had the one more pass. He didn't hold the ball at all. He didn't square up, stare at the post. He knew where the open guy was, and he threw for an open pass. He also made one of those in the second half. And I thought Galloway had a couple of those. Even Xavier, who has a tendency to pound the ball a little bit, I thought he moved the ball and didn't hold it and didn't try to stare down the post on the perimeter. And if Indiana's going to hit shots, which they hit, 8 threes tonight, if they're going to continue to shoot, they need to move the ball when the post is doubled or they drive and play off of 2 feet. Sometimes it's not the first kick out, it's the second pass that you're going to get an open 3. And I thought, we're going to love on Anthony Leo all night long. And he hit some big shots. But his passing, to me, was a meaningful moment that sometimes might get missed when you get caught up in watching the game. Bob, your thoughts on those types of hockey assists and extra passes and how important they are in effective offense?
I think that you referenced the XJ 3-pointer, and I wanted to go right before that. And IU was struggling against the press again, and every team will at some point against Iowa struggle against their full court press. It's designed to throw you different looks, and IU got it across the line, picked it up a couple times. The second time they picked it up, XJ picked it up, got the ball down into where they a couple passes in there, broke it, kept their heads about them. Didn't force a mistake, didn't have the error. But the other thing was, right after that, that's a Ware dunk in the end one. Then that next one was where XJ got the 3. And it was off of a Galloway drive to Leal And you just go, well, and it goes back to, Sam Story 101 will tell you this. Good things happen when you drive the ball. You're collapsing defenses. You're forcing them to get out of position. You're putting them in scramble mode. And those are the meaningful moment I just thought was, the way that they handled that pressure. And then after that dunk from Ware, I think they pretty much just went right through the press without any problems. I mean, they just basically dealt with it. They didn't turn it over against it. They controlled the ball and then ended up, not allowing Iowa to get on maybe a 10-0 run that could have put them out of the game.
You're right. That Leo pass to X was in the second half. Gabe Cupps had a nice pass for a three. He got the ball from the left side, and the action was going towards the right, and it's a kickback or a toss-back action. And he knew that the defense was going to swing as that ball was going, and he knew that the shooter was there. And that was one of Leo. I think that was Leo's first three on a kickback. Yeah. And I think that's really good recognition. And that's sometimes things that as a coach, I love when players understand. That ball just came from Leo, and now the defense is going to move off, and you look it off with some misdirection with your eyes. And Cupps did that and threw it back. And those are things that don't end up in the stats that I think are really good, that high basketball IQ players make that a lot of us miss on those. Ryan, you have a meaningful moment.
Yeah, and it's real simple. Second possession of the game, they ran Mackenzie Mbako off a double screen, a staggered double screen, gets the ball from Xavier Johnson, knocks down a three. You know what? I've been waiting since Saturday for a three-pointer, so that was a meaningful moment to me. And then he came down the next time they had the ball. Malik Renew kicks it out to him, nails another one. They needed to establish that they could make threes in this game. Otherwise, it was just going to be a crowded paint the entire time, and they wound up making 8. I think that after that game where they didn't hit any against Illinois, they really needed to get off to a good start tonight. And I think that was a big key to the game, was their ability to knock down threes. I don't think they did it enough. They ran McKenzie off that staggered double. Didn't see it a whole lot the rest of the game. I think I saw it once or twice, but running him off that to start the game, get some movement, get somebody there. And the other thing about running that staggered double is both of your big guys can then turn around and seal their guys and be open if they want. And if he's not open, those guys are. So I thought it was a great play to run. I'd love to see them run it more. As you guys all know, I don't need to repeat that a million times. I'll continue to, but I don't need to. But knocking that three down was huge, and then following it up with another, I think it just kind of set the offense on a good pace, and that's where they kind of got rolling from there.
Absolutely great point. They ran a stagger double and hit a three. Then Mbako gets a kick out for 3. Then they ran another stagger double. It was not the baseline pin double that the first one was, but it was a staggered towards the corner double, and he didn't get it. But X was now open to drive, and X drove, and I think he got
made
fouled.
the layup.
Yep. And so that's all what we've talked about is space the floor. You have 3 guys involved in action with the guy who just hit 2 threes. You're going to draw a lot of attention there. And if not, you're going to hit the third three. Yeah. And now XJ, who has explosiveness, can get to the rim without a lot of clutter. I thought that was a great way to start. I think, again, hitting 5 out of 8 early set the tone for offense. And I, like you, too, think that they planned that out really well, because I think they've run that action early quite a bit. And then they never seem to go back to it in the flow of the game. It's like it's scripted, and then they don't have it on their card, or they don't refer to their card of action again. And again, we want to stay positive tonight, but that was 3 really good plays to get your best three-point shooter going, and it got the whole team going. I think that was excellent game planning and scripting. Bob, your thoughts on
one more thing.
double and
one more thing about that staggered double, which is interesting, is I bet that was the first play they were going to run. They got a bucket real quick on the first one from Xavier throwing it to Renew, and he lobbed it in. I bet that was what they were going to run as the first play of the game. They just didn't get into it because they got a quick play to Renew real fast. So I would bet that they were really geared in on, let's just run that right out of the gate, and wound up having it be the second offensive possession.
I think the other thing, teams are figuring out that Mbako can shoot, and I think they're doing a much better job. Like, again, they'll, in the early stages of the game, okay, let's see what they're running. They let him go off the double. But I would say that once they started really closing him out more, he started driving it and really doing a much better job of just kind of getting and he's been doing this the last few games, but he's really kind of taking smaller players off the bounce. And I think once he figures out the next jump for him, can you finish a little better going inside? Or can you make the second read as help side's coming over? Can you get it to that dunker spot? Can you kick it out for the 3-point shot? Can you be a little more of a playmaker? I think that his offensive game is moving along. Defense is still a little shaky, but still he's better than he was, definitely better than he was 2 months ago. But
it's night and day.
It's night and day. But he rebounds well. But I go back to that thing where he's recognizing more where he just doesn't have to get lost and force something. He's letting the game come to him a lot more. And if you have space to do it, it's a hell of a lot easier.
And his next growth is to know when to shoot and when to drive. I think sometimes he predetermines. In the second half, he was predetermined to drive.
True.
I thought he passed up a couple threes. When you're the best three-point shooter, like I said, you got to take some questionable shots. Early in transition. I know that the announcer said one time didn't like a Galloway three on transition. I loved it, or whatever. Whoever took that three in transition in the first half. I loved it.
You're calling a game where Iowa's playing. I want to be clear on this. Iowa, who has been living off these shots for the last since even Tom Davis. Oh, I don't think no, I don't like that shot. No, I mean, this is that's the bread and butter of just about every program in the country, or transition threes in those types of situations. If you're not shooting that shot, you're doing something wrong.
All right, it's time to go inside the numbers. Brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey and her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. Awesome help there with your taxes, and it's tax season. Everyone's getting their W-2s, so give her a call and her team a call. For me, the stats, there's a few. I like the second chance points. Ryan, you made a point, like, is that going to continue? If we have injuries and renew and we got to play small, will we do that? But I think what that does is that slows down transition too when you're a threat on the offensive glass, because then the team's got to send more defenders and they can't leak out. And you saw the fact that when you miss – and the effort is there, and I know we got a lucky one, but by Galloway being in there and the ball bouncing off a toe, and then Galloway gets it and throws it to Ware, that won the game right there, because you're making the effort. And one of the things I think we've all been concerned about offensive rebounding is the lack of effort on both defensive rebounding and offensive rebounding.
A lot of watching.
And I think Indiana, with the second chance points, I think Indiana ended up out-rebounding Iowa as well, total 45-32. So the rebounding, which had been a concern, was a reason that you won a game. So that's one of the stats that stood out to me. You guys, what stats do you want to talk about? Or you want to go back to the rebounding?
Just real quick, just one thing. Mackenzie Mbako was 2 of 8 from 3 tonight, but at least 2 of them were rebounded and put back in, or at least kicked around for second chance opportunities. Sometimes you're not going to get the basket off the shot, but if you've got a 7-footer under the hoop, there's a better than not chance that some of those are going to turn into points, even if you miss. And so sometimes it's worth taking those. If it's a layup, the defense, it's a lot easier for the defense to get a rebound. A longer shot's a tougher rebound, and you've got the advantage in there with a bigger guy. So as long as he's on the floor, I'm fine taking threes that maybe don't go in. You take the chance that it goes in, you get 3 points. If you don't, you have a chance to mix it up in there, get a rebound. Maybe he taps it back out. You get a reset. But sometimes those shots, even though you miss them, wind up helping your offense and helping the bottom line. As for me, I think the stat that I had to look at was Indiana made 8 3-pointers, Iowa made 6. Indiana shot 36.4%, Iowa shot 27.3%. You won the 3-point battle and you won the game. It was ugly. It wasn't. It was a slog. You had you had way more turnovers than them, but you won on the 3-point line and you wound up winning the game. More often than not, if you win the 3-point line in college basketball in a mild, even a reasonably competitive game, you are going to win the game.
And to piggyback on that, Indiana didn't look for threes in the start of the second half, and that was when they struggled offensively. They were a little more post-centered and a little more stagnant with the basketball instead of that free-flowing stuff that Indiana did. So Coach Woodson, watch that first half and keep playing like that. And even then, I think the last 7 or 8 minutes they were a little more fluid. But that first 10 minutes, they just, for whatever reason, we said maybe they were struggling defensively and all that, but they did not take a lot of threes early in that second half. And I know we were beating a dead horse, but it is good basketball. Bob, your comments on the threes, or do you have any stats that you would like to share?
18 assists on 26 makes on a
That
night
was my next one.
where you had,
Yes.
and you also had the amount of second chance points you had. 11-minute mark, there was a possession. I can't remember the exact sequencing, but I think it ended with a Walker to Ware for either a dunk or a layup. And the ball didn't hit the floor. The ball just got moving. They were moving, got off a cut, and there was and it was just beautiful basketball. Because what that also does is that also basically forces teams then to defend, they have to now defend not just your driving, but your ability to pass the ball through penetration. And if you're talking about post looks, and this is one that you're not going to see, but, from a standpoint of post looks, tonight, per synergy, Indiana only put the ball in the post 9 times. Only 3 times in the second half. And you had
Where
this
was
type of
catching it
performance.
when Where was catching it? He was out of the lane for the most part. They were pushing him out, so it makes sense.
And the whole point is, Ware's not a back to the basket player. I'm one who believes that Ware is one of those guys.
Totally agree.
Renew is, but Where is
he can't, yeah, exactly. And so you have a situation where you have a taller 5 who's basically your 4, and you have a shorter 4 who's basically your 5. And you got to
Bob,
play him
we
as
said
such.
this all off season and nobody listened to us.
I know.
We need Coach Moats. That's the
Yeah.
secret sauce to make sure.
At least you
everyone
can
hears.
verify that we were not idiots.
No,
On
exactly.
that, on other things,
On
sure.
that,
but
yeah,
that,
I mean,
that is,
we knew Mbaka was going to play the 3 because there was no way they were going to bring those 3 guys in together. All 3 of those guys were going to play. We knew front court scoring was going to be essential. All those things. But you kind of had to look at this differently, where it's like, okay, Ware has got to be kind of, again, high low, and you can move him high low, but you just don't stick Ware in a position where you're doing that. But the point is, the big stat was when you're getting those assists and you're getting those those looks off of passes. That's huge. That's huge for an offense that's been struggling all year long. And you go back to what works. You just can't default back to what your preferences are. And I mean, I know Coach and I both have been stubborn in the past, where we're going to do it this way and we're going to cram that thing down. But in reality, it's like as you get older as a coach, you realize you got to be a little more flexible with your personnel. And you're right. And again, if the horse is working, you ride him. And tonight we saw what happened when you were a little more flexible. You see what happens with an offensive result.
And guys, it's just so much more obvious. The ball just moved tonight, where it just doesn't sometimes for Indiana's offense, and it's just stagnant, and it's very dribble into the ground, waiting for somebody to get open and staring at one guy when offense has multiple options. If you're locked into one person, you're missing something. Especially if it's not an easy pass and it means the defense is shaded a certain way, somebody's got to have a better look. Or if they don't and they're not helping, that means your drive is available, but you're locked in trying to pass it straight in front of you as opposed to moving the ball. Tonight, the ball moved, and that's why you get those assists. I mean, that's the evidence right there.
We really, I mean, I want Malik Renew back tomorrow. You got to have this kid. At the same time, though, when a kid like that goes down, your team is forced to find new options. And I think that was part of it tonight.
Necessity.
You've got to. So sometimes, necessity, is the mother of invention. And this is a case where, in this situation, Indiana had to find a way without going to a guy. And this is, again, something where I don't think in the modern game you can win effectively at a high level if you're relying on one player for 30% of your possessions. I just think I don't care what level you're at. Even with 12-year-olds, I'll tell you that, okay, you want to give that kid the ball 35, give that kid 40% of the shots, we're going to take care of that. We know how to deal with that situation. So I just think that, they grew a lot in kind of finding a way to kind of just play to just find ways of scoring, even though they weren't with their usual guys. The guy that
Ryan, you have some quick stats you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think 8 blocks was big. I mean, to get him, it wasn't just
Ware.
Ware had
Walker.
3. Renew had one, Leal had one, Walker had two, Peyton Sparks had quite a block where he did the Mutombo thing and immediately pulled it back because he realized you're not supposed to do that. The games are on TV there, Peyton, so just pull that back. But the other one was bench points. Indiana won bench points, which they never do. It was 20-4 on bench points, and thank you, Anthony Leal, Anthony Walker, and Gabe Cups for 20 bench points. Stuff like that is key, man. You got to get contributions from up and down the roster. That's why you have these guys on the roster, And then I will also say that I thought that Gabe Cups in limited action, 11 minutes, he was plus 14, led the team. So he had a good night, even though other than the three, we didn't really get a whole lot statistically out of him. He was on the floor during some of Indiana's best possessions and best runs. And the reason I mentioned that is he may need to be back in a starting role and playing a lot. Yeah. But if he is, I think he fits best with not just Trey Galloway, but also Anthony Leal out there. And so those three plus Mbako and Ware, I'd consider starting that group unless you're facing a team with a lot of size, in which case you probably have to start Anthony Walker. But I think that foursome on the perimeter is your best opportunity to do some things, particularly offensively. But the defense from Cups and Leal was fantastic tonight.
Indiana, talking about that defense, Indiana holds a pretty good offensive team to 1.015 points per possession. At one point in the second half, I looked, it was 1.4. That's how tough it was in that 10-minute stretch when Iowa erased the 11-point lead and and eventually took the lead over Indiana. It ended up in the second half only 1.212, so Indiana really found a way to buckle down. And it goes back to the whole thing that we're talking about, overcoming injuries, overcoming tough spurts in the games, winning the game within the game, and overcoming adversity. When Indiana does that, they did it against a Big Ten team. They did it against some lesser-known teams earlier in the season, but this was a better performance all the way around. In Indiana, I don't know what their best offensive performance tonight was, and I know Iowa does not guard, so you have to be careful. But 1.138 when you have your best player leave after 3 minutes and not get any shots other than the first basket that he made, I think that was enough to score 74 points and win the games. So coming up on the assembly call, we're going to hand out our game balls, our Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss the lingering question or two, and look ahead to Indiana's upcoming opponent. That's all next here on the assembly call. So stick with us.
Hey, this is Deron Davis. And what's the only thing better than dominating a Duke big man in the post? Is celebrating with friends afterwards. Join Gerard, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Hall call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
I love Deron.
You're listening to the Assembly Hall call IU postgame show. I'm the coach, Brian Tonsoni. I'm here with Coach Bob Moats and the shot doctor, Ryan Phillips. We are celebrating and talking about Indiana's 74-68 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes. And now it's time for our game balls presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. I'm playing Allie in fantasy golf this week, so I hope you call her for the business and then not root for her golfers. But anyway, as we are in the middle of the colder months, begin to stay indoors a bit more, they want to make sure everyone knows about radon, a colorless, odorless, radioactive gas that is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. It enters buildings through cracks and gaps in the foundation and through service pipes of homes. According to the EPA, Monroe County and other surrounding counties throughout Indiana are expected to have elevated levels of radon above the action level recommended for mitigation. Contact Bloom Environmental today and mention Assembly Call for a free radon test kit and mitigation estimate. Learn more at bloomenviro.com. That's bloomenviro.com. All right, time for game balls. We'll start with you, Coach Moats. Who gets your game ball tonight in tonight's victory?
Anthony Leal, coming off the bench, career night, did it, the 2 threes in the first half were huge, and then coming in the second and doing all the things that he did. That one drive where he just drove it off the baseline. I mean, just all the big things, all the little things. I think it's, mine's Leal. Can't even argue it in my own head.
Ryan.
Come on, it's Anthony Leal, guys. There's no question. Khalil Ware put up numbers. Anthony Leal drove the train all night. And it wasn't like he had one good stretch. He had a great first half, great second half. Brought it home. The crowd reacted to him too. I think that was big. I mean, just seeing that guy. Everyone at IU knows what that guy's been through and what he's done and who he is, and couldn't be happier for him. This was his night.
And I'm making it 3 for Anthony Leal. I thought he had obviously a career night, 13 points, 7 rebounds, the hockey assist pass, the defense he played on Perkins. And, yes, he got beat a couple times defensively, but his overall plus-minus, if we statted it out, would be off the charts. And for a young man who a lot of us, including me, thought other players were going to take his minutes earlier in the season, that he sticks with it and just loves Indiana basketball. For him to have that kind of night and get a win, a much-needed win for everyone, the players first, the coaches second, and then all of us fans, a big needed win. Congratulations, Anthony. Just a fantastic performance tonight. So he joins the scoreboard. Ware with 8, Malik with 7 are way ahead of the contest. Mbako with 3 and a bunch of players with 1, but Anthony Leal is one of those now. And now it's time for
The Hoosier Real Hustle Award.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, and it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award. But first, I have some exciting news to share about our friends at Evansville Security Services. They've been acquired. They are now part of the team at Security Pro 24/7, which provides trusted and reliable security for your event or business, from Bloomington, my hometown, to Evansville, where Coach Calvert Chaney grew up, and everything in between. Just like hustle can't be measured by stats, prevention can't be measured either, but it has a huge impact on your bottom line and peace of mind. So let the security pros at Security Pro 24/7 help you prevent a bad outcome today. Visit securitypro247.com to learn more. That's securitypro247.com. And tell them Anthony Leal sent you.
Anthony's doing everything tonight. He's scoring, he's defending, he's passing.
MVP of the show.
He got the great, advertisement. Ryan, who gets your hustle award?
You know what? Given what he played through tonight and how he stepped up big at the end, I'm giving it to Khalil Ware, which we don't usually give him hustle awards. We give him, the game balls, and he's the guy. But, he had 5 offensive rebounds, 10 boards total, 3 blocks, played 35 minutes on a bum ankle. I'm giving it to Khalil for toughing that out, man. You could go a couple different directions. I think Anthony Walker played some great minutes, just being disruptive. I think Trey Galloway played a great night. But Khalil Ware, man, especially over that last 5 to 7 minutes where he was really struggling on that ankle, I got to give it to him.
Bob.
I'm in 100% agreement on Ware. I think when this night started and he stepped out there, I think the plan was for him to not play anywhere close to 35. And he stayed on those 2 legs playing 35 minutes, not really being at 100% full game shape. And the other thing, I go back to how he defended, again, Owen Freeman, the supposed leader for Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He basically shut that guy down and forced Iowa to have to play without it being an offensive threat. So you take all those things in there, and just the way he worked, he was a workhorse tonight, and he did all the things they needed him to do, and he did it playing through an immense amount of pain while not being 100% in shape. So Where it is.
Again, I'll just make it 3 votes for the Hoosier Hustle Award. I think there's a lot of players that could have gotten mentioned. Sparks came in, got off the ground, and threw that into the band. Right.
Not alone Cups, on a normal night might get it.
No, I mean the team since the break has really come out and raised its compete level. And you can compete and maybe not execute and miss shots or miss a defensive assignment, lose a game like the struggle at Illinois, just a tough loss. But when you compete, and this it should be a given for Indiana basketball, I know that people will put that in there. But this team had struggled to find that competition level, the high level of competition and competing. And I think that they've demonstrated that in the last 2 games. Life is going to get tough. We're going to go to lingering questions. This program has a lot of lingering questions from scheme, and all that stuff is still there. But for tonight, everyone in that program got together and hustled. But I think where obviously was the one with his block shots, his rebounds, the ability to put the team on their back down the stretch in the last 5 or 6 minutes, I think was just very, very important. So he wins his second Hoosier Hustle Award. We have a tie between Mbako and Cups with 4, Walker with 3, Gunn with 3, Galloway with 3, Ware 2, Sparks 2, and Xavier Johnson 1 for Hoosier Hustle Award. And now it's time for our lingering questions. If you have one in the chat mob, but I think there's just one, or actually a combination question. What is the status of Indiana's injuries from tonight? Malik Renew has a lower body injury, a foot or an ankle that he did not return after the 17-minute, and then Xavier Johnson got caught up in a play at the rim and fell awkwardly on his wrist and was writhing in pain. So the lingering question has to be, what is their status? And then depending on the status of those injuries, who is going to step up, and how is that going to look Saturday against Penn State? And then potentially for the length of these injuries, what's that going to do? Your guys' thoughts, Ryan, we'll go to you first on tonight's negative of the injuries happening to a couple very, very key players.
Yeah, I don't think either one's gonna be there Saturday, if I had to guess, just based on what it looked like. Now, again, not an expert, not in the locker room, not a doctor. I did not get a medical degree from the time that those injuries happened till now. So that has not changed. But just knowing what you know when you see an injury, neither of those look very good. The fact that Malik, he had crutches, then he wasn't on the bench for a while. The fact that Xavier Johnson was in a whole lot of pain, and it looked like he landed directly on that wrist, arm, wrists. We're not sure exactly, but it didn't look good. And so I think that tomorrow we'll find out more, if not tomorrow, the day after, and we'll sort of understand. But man, that's rough. But again, Indiana has shown they have enough talent to not navigate without those guys. You don't want to, you don't like to, but you have enough talent and you have enough fight when you want to have it to navigate without those guys. We'll see what happens.
Bob, your thoughts on the unfortunate injuries in tonight's ball game?
You feel for both kids, and especially Xavier Johnson right now.
How many injuries is that guy going to have? Seriously. I mean,
and you just think that, you're back here, you're 24 years old in Bloomington, playing your 6th year of college basketball, and you could just tell when he went down, just again, you have to feel for that young man and what he's going through. And that being said, I think it's going to be interesting to see, again, how does this team respond? Because I think one big response to this team tonight was, we're not letting these guys beat us. Well, we got these 2 guys down. When Malik went down, we're not going to let him beat us. When XJ went down, you kind of saw a hardening of resolve. And sometimes injuries can either tear you apart or bring you together. I think this is a case where I just hope that this team can continue to bring themselves together and keep competing.
What you'll find too is that initially teams overcome because they bond together and they have that energy, and then the 3rd or 4th game, if people are out longer than that, that's when the other teams start scheming and playing, and then things start to level off. So I would expect a very spirited effort if these guys are not there Saturday in the relatively short turnaround for these injuries. I would expect Indiana to put forth a really great effort on Saturday. Then the question becomes, when you travel to Purdue and other places, if you don't have these key players, how does that play out? And only time will tell. Bob, you had a lingering question.
I think the lingering question is, are we going to continue to see what we've been seeing the last couple games offensively and defensively, just with execution on defense, but also some of the schematics on offense? Are we going to keep seeing that over the next 10 games, to finish this season out? And I think, we've noticed that, it's kind of funny. There's a weird loop that with in the Woodson era where there's a period sometime in January or early February where we're just kind of going, is this going to get any better? And then they figure a couple little things out, they change those little things, and you see growth. And I'm just hoping, I kind of said this in the Substack and some other things, what are they trying to do? And I'm beginning to see a little more of what that is, what they think a good shot is, how they want to defend, how they want to stop the ball, where they want to funnel the ball. We're seeing a little more of that, but it's just a matter of, are we going to see that are we going to see continued growth in this area over the next 10 games?
Indiana, I believe, has been 12-7 every year under Coach Woodson. The first year they were able to bounce back with a nice run in the Big Ten tournament, even though I think they lost 5 out of 7 late, and made the tournament in the play-in game and won a game. And then last year they were 12-7, had a really ugly run at Penn State, 20-point loss or 18-point loss. And so that's the point you're talking about. Well, this is the point in the season where Coach Woodson has seemed to find out what his team's about and has pushed forward. The big caveat is the injuries. Going forward, I think that is obviously an excellent lingering question. But the last 2 games have been, you never enjoy a loss, but there are losses that can be enjoyable after the fact with a high level of competition and a close game as opposed to some of the blowouts that Indiana's had. So we hope to see that on Saturday. Ryan, your lingering question or any thoughts on Bob's?
I think that the one lingering question I have is who's showing up on Saturday to hang out with us. We're all coming off this. Let's come on. Let's go out and fight and beat Penn State. That was the game. They had one game left that they were favored in on the schedule going into tonight. That's the one. Go out and crush Penn State. Get the win. Get Anthony Leal 20. Let's have a great night or great day, and then everybody please come to upstairs afterward. If you're in the area, if you're in Indy and you don't have tickets to the game, drive down. They're going to do a watch party upstairs. It's completely free to come. We want to see and meet all of you guys. So please show up in person at upstairs after the game or during it, and we'll be there. We're going to do a post-game show live. We're going to have raffles, giveaways, whatever. The guys from Crimson Cast going to be there. Hard Truth Distillery is sponsoring the event. Come have a drink with us, hang out, and let's have a good night on Saturday. Really excited flying out there on Thursday. Love to be back in Bloomington. I am incredibly excited. So find us out on the town Friday night and hang out with us all day Saturday. We look forward to seeing all of you guys. So that's my lingering question is, are you going to come? Because you should. You don't want to miss out on this.
It is one of the things we look forward to, getting everyone together on the team, but also meeting a lot of you. And the reason that this is so much fun and important is because of the chat mob and the listeners all around. So we have AC Radio on Thursday. Some of you, Ryan, you'll be in Bloomington already on Thursday,
I will.
So you won't be part of that.
I believe I'll be on a plane at that moment. I might already have landed by then. Yeah.
And Jared will be flying out early Friday morning, so I think it's Andy and I, and I'm not sure who else will join us, but we'll talk about this game, and we'll preview Penn State. Penn State is a game that Indiana needs to win, even with the injuries.
Yeah.
They're a team with Mike Rhodes, the new coach, who came from VCU, taking over for Micah Shrewsbury, so it's a program in a little bit of flux starting up. So this is a game that Indiana at home should take care of business. And as Ryan said, we have the live meetup after Penn State. There's probably not going to be a live post-game show on YouTube where you can watch if you're not in Bloomington because it'll be live. We are going to tape it, and then we'll post the live recording later, but I don't think we're going to go actually live.
Video live.
Over. So, that make sure you note that and don't plan on doing that. But you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember to check out our friends again at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to get 15% off your first order. Okay, guys, it's time for our last call. Bob, your thoughts tonight, final thoughts on Indiana's 74-68 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes.
where, this was, again, I felt like today it was a must-win for Indiana at home against Iowa. They needed a win that was kind of more quad, and I think probably be a quad 2 win eventually, Coach. You're more the bracketologist.
Yep.
So you need those quad 2s, those quad 1s. They have plenty of opportunities for quad 2s, and maybe a few quad 1s coming up. But you had to knock this one down, at the very least, to snap a 3-game losing streak. So I'll take a win every day of the week. Like I said, win ugly. That's fine. I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty. So, I'll take the win.
Ryan, your last call.
Let's enjoy this night for Anthony Leal. It's great to get a win. Everything, quad 2, quad, like, it doesn't matter. That kid stepped up and in the arena that he wanted to play in the uniform he wanted to play in his whole life, and won the game for Indiana. That's awesome. It really, really is, and it's a great story. This season hasn't gone the way that I think people hoped it would so far, but tonight was a bright point, and it's something that we should remember. When we look back on this season, this is a night we shouldn't overlook. It's pretty awesome that a kid went to school, spent 3 years essentially not playing a whole lot, and then as a senior, when his team needed him, he stepped up and had the biggest game of his career and got them a win that they desperately, desperately needed. That's the story tonight. 100% that's the story. So I feel great for Anthony Leal. I'm incredibly happy for him. We all should be. And it's just a great story of a not just an Indiana kid, but a Bloomington kid stepping up and having a huge game his senior year to get a win. And just, you could see how much it meant to him at the end. He grabbed that last rebound. He's fist pumping while the clock's still running, and good for him, man. Good for him.
Well said. For me, it's this credit to the fans. I got a couple texts from people who were at Assembly Hall, and they said the atmosphere down the stretch was incredible and what they loved about Assembly Hall. And I know the frustration levels are there for all of us, but that's what Indiana basketball was about tonight. Young men overcoming some adversity within the game, some injuries of their fellow teammates, and finding a way to claw out a victory in front of a really excited crowd. So kudos out to those of you who are in the hall tonight. And the energy that you brought down the stretch, helping our guys achieve the victory. So that's going to do it for us tonight. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. Don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigsdesign.com for designing our logo. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops with you on Thursday. Until then,
take it from me, Jordan Halls. Keep your elbow in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Hey, the show's over. Here I come, Coach Tonsoni.
Gonna be a fun night for Coach.
Winning.
All right, everybody. Right. Hey, everybody. I will not see you Thursday. I will see you Saturday. I can't wait to see you guys all in person.
Wait, are you saying Friday or Saturday?
Well, I'll see everybody at the meetup on Saturday. Friday night, we're going to be out at the bars, and they can come find us if we want. We're always at Nick's in the same place. Come find us. But
we'll probably be at Nick's and upstairs at some point on Friday night as well, I would imagine, at both spots, and then wherever else we end up.
Yeah, I mean, after a couple, who knows where we're going to – I got to drag Coach back home. Like, it's a whole thing.
I'm kind of hard to find.
You are, man.
So if you're lucky –
We've thought about a leash. Like
wait, I want to be clear. Weymouth and I were wondering what our dues were to join Back Home Network. Like Mike and I were actually talking about this.
Okay. Okay.
You're buying drinks Friday night. That's
you beat me to it. That you have to open a tab at Nick's for all of us. And that's your dues.
Bob, it's a college town. It's cheap. Don't worry. It's 130 people, but it's cheap.
I've never been caught holding that bar tab in my life. Ryan, I think that might be the last time I actually physically saw you when you were in Columbus, and we might have been at the 4th Street together. And I may have been holding that tab also.
So if you're in Bloomington, you can always go up and ask for the Bob Moats tab. Just you're out on Friday night, at upstairs or wherever.
They know
Bob Moats.
On Bob.
Bob Moats.
The ownership group's like, no, we know better. We know this guy. He's already out the back door, headed towards
he already owes
the
us $1,400. We're not putting more on.
We're not putting more on that thing.
No, and then Bob, what you do is you take that big tab and you walk over to Jared and say, "This needs to go on the BHN card." It's the Basketball Network
that's
card.
that's the key.
That's the key.
That's the key.
All right.
Whatever tab you get, just pass it over. So, are you coming in Friday night, or are you going to? I know you live close, so.
Oh man, I mean, I'm going to jet over Friday night, cool. and hang out with you guys. Yeah, you'll see me then, awesome. And then our debate was basically, it's like, okay, it sounds like I'm going to be saying Saturday also, so I got to prep my wife for this. So yes. We'll see. Yeah,
it's your one requirement every year. You got to be there. You got to be there.
I think I can do that. I mean, if that's my one, I'll take those every day of the week.
I think Andy's wife will be there. Mrs. Tonsoni will be there. So bring the missus.
Jen and Amy, man, they're like two of the best people on the planet. So we're excited.
They're calm. They're the ones who make sure we get home at like 2 a.m.
And they also make
Friday
fun of
night.
us the entire time, which is just worth the price of admission.
I think Beth will probably look for a next year sort of thing. She wants a scouting report from Mike at this point, to make sure that she can be trusted.
Shoot lots of video. Be like,
hey. Is Jen flying in for this? Jen and Tim? I don't know. I see Jen in the chat. I wonder that it would be very disappointing if she didn't. But anyway, Megan, don't you have tax stuff to do? Or it's 10:27. What are you doing? Your partner's in here, Bob.
Jen's coming.
Mike.
All right, Jen will be there. Hey, Mike, get that debit card ready, buddy. Get that debit card ready.
Call the accountant. Let him know it's gonna be quite the week.
This is why I need this is why I need adult supervision right here, right now. I need adult supervision at all times.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Look what I negotiated for us.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Peace, everyone.